Welcome to 10 Minutes with Tamara. My guest today is Jody in Australia, which I just think is amazing that my first guest was Ananda in New Zealand, and now I have Jody in Australia. I just love that the message and the work of lead poisoning prevention advocacy is just going all over the world. And I love that mothers from all these different countries want to participate in sharing their stories to help other families and make a difference in the world. So I'm really thankful, Jody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited, and I do want to start off by saying the reason why I found out that my son had lead poisoning was because of your page and all the work that you do. So I can tell you a little bit about that, but if it wasn't for your work, I would have no clue that my son was lead poisoned. So
okay, so now I'm crying.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I actually, so that was going to be my first question for you is yeah, how did you find me? And tell that story a little bit here so that others can know how we connected.
I found you somehow on Facebook. It was quite a while ago, and back in 2018, a doctor had tested my son's blood lead level, and it was 2.5, but she didn't say too much about it. And then somehow, like, she didn't tell me to do any kind of further testing or anything like that. And then somehow I came across your page on Facebook. So I started seeing your posts about the pain, the lead dust. It took me a while to get the courage to watch the film, which was absolutely brilliant, and all the work that you did, especially helping that mum, the pregnant mum, with the porch. Then I asked the pediatrician, I want to test my son's blood lead level, because I just started to see everything in my house as a potential hazard, and it was. His level came back as 8.3. And then they called the health department to come out and test the house. So, but I wouldn't have done that or got to that stage if I wasn't like reading your blogs and your posts on Facebook and looking at the lead group that you have set up as well.
Well, it's heartwarming and also tragic to hear,
Yeah.
you know. And I guess so. The question I had was, how long ago was that second test and the follow-up you did with your son?
So it was March this year, and by May, my son was having severe OCD, aggression, a lot of the things that you have talked about in your film and in your blogs that are a result of lead poisoning. So he already does have nonverbal autism, so it's really hard to determine what level of damage that the lead poisoning did do. However, I noticed a change in my son a couple of months after. He was just not like he'd ever been before, and we ended up in hospital and everything. So we believe he got poisoned through the soil in the back of the pool fence. So he was putting soil in the water, and then he would put the water in his mouth and spit it out because of his autism and his sensory issues. So I just said to my husband, I didn't know there was lead in there, but I said, this is pretty gross. Let's just get rid of it, because it was only a little, it was fairly big, but it was a pool we could take down. So I said, just get rid of it, because he keeps putting dirt and it's getting gross. So I had no idea that, and that was in about January. So I do suspect his blood lead level was actually higher before I thought to test it, or before I, got to the point where I wanted to test it. Yeah.
And
then the health.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So the health department came out and he did a whole bunch of tests, and I'm really disappointed in the health department over here, because he did mix samples and give me wrong sample. He gave me incorrect results because I did my own testing. But yeah, we can get to that later if you like.
That's a really interesting thing. It's actually it's a frustrating practice across the board when doing soil testing, and I don't know the origins of it, where there's got to be someone who said, oh, this is a good idea, but it never was a good idea. And they do that here in America, where they take a soil sample from all these different places and then they mix it all together and you get one result, where you could have one soil that is 2,000 parts per million and another one that's negative, and you mix it all together and you get a not useful bit of information.
Yes, that's exactly what happened here. So the representative from the health department told me the soil in my yard was like 400 parts per million. However, what he did is he mixed it with some soil in between like a lemon tree and an orange tree. And then the soil that poisoned my son was over 1,000, where he was putting that into the pool. So I did my own testing, and my whole yard isn't 400. It's actually 28. But the soil in between the two trees was 1,000. And that's the area my son goes to the most.
What I've said to families with that are either looking at properties that are old orchards or have an old orchard in their backyard, I say definitely check the soil, because there's a high possibility that that soil was treated with leaded pesticides if it's a legacy orchard. And I think that's very much the possibility from what you said. I've never heard someone tell me the levels. You just told me that around the fruit trees is 1,000 parts per million. Well, I really think that, I don't know how old those trees are, but it seems to me like those trees were likely treated with leaded pesticides. And it's a really interesting kind of twist.
I didn't even know that was also a thing, leaded pesticides. Like, it's shocking that they put these harmful substances in our products.
Well, lead kills biological organisms. And so they would put lead around the base of the fruit trees to prevent the bugs from getting up to the fruit. So sometimes the fruit is fine. It's really actually rare that fruit is highly contaminated in just from growing. What did you do about the soil? Have you done anything to remediate the soil in your yard?
Okay, so that is the part where between the two trees, my husband has laid down some grass, which had a bit of soil underneath it. I had asked him to put topsoil, because Elizabeth from the lead group said to put topsoil, like about, I think it was 50 mil or 200 mil. I'd have to check before we lay down some grass. But unfortunately, he just laid down the grass, which I wasn't happy with. But it's done, and I'm going to retest the top area of that with the new test kit that I have. And the one in the behind the pool fence, that we've only temporarily covered that with a tarp and some bricks, and he's not allowed to go in the pool fence area. So if he tries to go in there, we immediately take him out. I'm too scared I need to find like a proper way to remediate that without contaminating the rest of the house. So the health department said that I could lay some concrete over it. So that's an option. I prefer that it just be gone, but I'd have to find a contractor that I believe could do it safely.
I think you could build like a Trex decking with the slatting over it, so you have like a deck that won't deteriorate. The Trex is the plastic wood stuff, and then it has there's space in between each board, so that you can then keep it wet and you can water it down to keep so you have a pocket of elevation between the soil and the top of the deck, and you could build that deck around the trees. And I mean, the problem with concrete is you take away the porosity of the soil, the surface, and then you end up with water issues and other problems. So if you build like a Trex deck around there, you're putting a space above the soil, and you can always hose the thing down and keep the baby off the contaminated soil area.
That's actually a very clever idea, because I think there's plumbing there, and the concrete was just it. My husband said he'll put a really thin layer, because if anything happens, he'll have to rip it up, which then made me nervous. So that's really excellent advice. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Jody from Australia, and we are not done with this conversation. This was such an intense conversation that we're going to split up this into multiple episodes of 10 Minutes with Tamara, and stay tuned for the next episode to hear more about Jody's story and how lead poisoning has impacted her family. Thank you for being with us here at 10 Minutes with Tamara. Thank you, Jody, for joining us, and see you again real shortly.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for all the work that you do. You're amazing.
Thank you.